For years ago, my life felt like it was falling into place with such precise perfection, almost seemed orchestrated. My name is Grant Whitaker. At that time, I was nearing the end of my tech degree from a highly respected institute just outside New York City. I'd already earned a name for myself as a sharp, intuitive software developer, one professors admired and companies aggressively pursued. But I wasn't seduced by the promises of glossy job titles and the glass towers of the corporate machine. I wanted no part in trading 80-hour weeks for gilded shackles, selling my soul for an inflated paycheck. Instead, I looked homeward. Many of my closest friends were sons of small trucking families. I'd seen the fatigue behind their fathers' eyes, men worn down by brutal hours, paper-thin margins, and clunky, outdated logistics systems. I recognized an opening, a void begging to be filled. So I built something for them. What began as a simple tool to manage schedules and driver assignments quickly evolved. I added route optimization, predictive maintenance alerts, and streamlined supply chain integration. Suddenly, small haulers were saving thousands and running smoother than they ever had. Profits rose without any extra burden on their shoulders. I hired a handful of my sharpest classmates, paid them well, and within months, the system had traction. By the time I graduated, I stood at a fork in the road. Sell the tool or scale it. The truckers who had come to rely on it begged me not to walk away. They needed this. So I leaned in. I doubled down. But to grow, I needed a base of operations. That's when I made the single worst decision of my life. A year before graduation, I met Sierra. She was striking, tall, enigmatic, with eyes like deep forest glass that could chase you into your sleep. She studied nearby, and from the start, she was forthright. After college, she planned to return to her rural southern hometown, and she wanted me to come with her. I told myself I could work from anywhere. That was the first lie I swallowed. Ignoring every flare of instinct, I said yes. Before we moved, I made a meticulous checklist. I needed fiber internet, reliable electricity, backup power, scalable workspace, every logistical detail necessary to ensure my company could thrive. Sierra's father and uncle swore their town could offer it all. I believed them. That was mistake number one. Reality didn't tap me on the shoulder. Its sucker punched me in the face. The moment we arrived, things started falling apart. Sierra told me her parents refused to let us live together before marriage. So I ended up in a decaying, mold-infested motel on the edge of town, a place that reeked of mildew and something even worse, despair. And then I saw her outside a local diner, her body language intimate, arms brushing against men who were far too familiar with her. My gut screamed at me to run. But I didn't. Not yet. Meeting her family sealed the coffin. Their so-called business center, where I was supposed to set up shop, was a crumbling wreck. Faded paint, flickering fluorescent lights, unreliable wiring, and not a trace of the high-speed fiber they promised. Just a rusty DSL line from 1998. And worse, they demanded absurd rent. They laughed in my face, called me that northern fool. I'm Scottish-American, but to them, anyone not from their dusty county lines was an outsider and an enemy. I confronted Sierra. She feigned outrage, claimed she was just as disappointed, weaponized guilt like a veteran manipulator. I held my ground. I told her I wouldn't work under those conditions. She reluctantly agreed to help me look for alternatives, likely just keep tabs on me. Around that time, Lucas, my college friend and attorney, gave me the only honest advice I heard all year. Grant, if you're marrying this girl, get a prenup. Lock down your software, your assets, everything. He knew these kinds of towns. They circled the wagons fast. I took his advice. Sierra was livid. She yelled, cried, hurled accusations. But in the end, she signed. We got married anyway, despite every black cloud swirling above us. Within 9 months, the cracks split wide open. Her mask began to slip. She refused intimacy with eerie consistency. Always on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. She tracked my every move. Where are you going? Who were you with? Every hour accounted for. Then came the politics. Her family idolized Clay Dobson, a firebrand senator who was the embodiment of everything I loathed. And everyone in town knew I couldn't stand the man. my popularity, such as it was, took a nosedive when I refused to sponsor the town's Independence Day celebration for a second year in a row, especially after last year's donation mysteriously disappeared. A few days later, Sierra's father rolled up in a brand new truck. Subtle? Not even close. Then came the night it all clicked. One restless Tuesday, my head pounding from debugging endless lines of stubborn code, I decided to take a drive. Fresh air, clear thoughts. A moment later, I noticed a truck tailing me far too precisely. And then Sierra called, her voice trembling, nervous, not with concern but dread. Not fear for me. Fear what I might find. It was a signal. From that moment forward, I moved silently. I already knew about the seedy motel, infamous for its hourly guests and paper-thin walls. One night, I parked beneath a shattered street lamp and waited. Just like a script, Sierra arrived. And not alone. Two men I recognized from her circle of flirtations flanked her, smug and comfortable. I didn't confront her. No screaming. No scenes. Just silence. Then strategy. I called Lucas. Then Victor, a longtime client and CEO of one of the largest freight firms across 3 counties. Victor represented a full quarter of my annual revenue. Together, we staged a show. Victor marched into the town diner one morning and, loud enough for every gossip to hear, announced that we were severing business ties. The town exploded in smug glee. The narrative practically wrote itself. The northern tech kid finally fell. That night, I vanished under the guise of salvaging what remained of my crumbling business. Sierra's family celebrated like they'd slain a dragon. Meanwhile, I was quietly transplanting my entire operation to the neighboring city. I hired new staff, installed discreet hidden cameras. Home, motel, everywhere. Then came the evidence. Twice a week, like religious ritual, Sierra paraded through that motel's front door with her carousel of partners. Some were small-town boys with swagger, others familiar faces. One of them, Reverend Aldrich, the town's self-proclaimed moral compass. I documented everything. Crystal clear footage, receipts, time-stamped calls, precise photographs. When I had it all, I struck. First, I sent anonymous dossiers to every cheating man's wife. Some wept, some thanked me. One sent me a pie. Then I released Aldrich's motel romps to his congregation and the local press. His career disintegrated within hours. I publicly fired every employee who had snickered behind my back or assisted Sierra in her deceit. Each termination was brutally detailed and humiliating, but that was merely the prelude. One golden Sunday morning, while the townsfolk gathered for hymns and fragile hope, I made my entrance. Draped across the church walls were massive posters, scenes of Sierra entangled with her lovers, Aldrich included. I walked down the aisle in silence, then roared, "Reverend Aldrich, perhaps your next sermon should be on adultery, right after you apologize to Mrs. Cole, Mrs. Farnsworth, and my wife." I turned to Sierra, pale and shaking. "Game's over, darling. Divorce papers are on the kitchen table." I walked out. The congregation didn't move. Sierra crumbled. Next came the purge. I shredded every fraudulent lease her uncle had forced on me. Without access to my software, his restaurant folded in under 2 months. Investigators arrived. Tax fraud, financial abuse, even incest allegations among their twisted bloodline surfaced. I filed for divorce in another county, far beyond their reach. The prenup held. She walked away with nothing. No house, no car. It had been leased under a shell company I owned. No savings, no job. I drove east toward the coast and didn't glance back. The ocean met me like an old friend. I stood on the shore, salt air thick in my lungs, and exhaled a lifetime's worth of venom. When her family came hunting for revenge, they were met by men who owed me dearly, men who don't tolerate threats. Her father and uncle left battered and humiliated. Eventually, I met Elena. Where Sierra was storm and sabotage, Elena was stillness and grace. She asked for nothing but honesty, time, truth. We married. Laughter returned to my life. Business flourished. Peace wrapped itself around me like a long-lost coat. Here's what I learned. When your gut growls, listen. Ignore it and you'll bleed. But if you honor it, you might just find the strength to free yourself and write a revenge story they'll whisper about for decades.